Welcome, everyone. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome to Facebook Live. It is probably, this is going to be our last Facebook Live for the month of March. So uh, hope everyone is doing fantastically well. I don't know how this month went by. It went by very, very quickly. So let me switch over and get to our panel. Today we have April, who is a psychic. I think she's done some channeling and mediumship, she said last time, and then quite a few other modalities of healing. And she has a master's in it, right, April? You've done certification, you've got a master's in, and you do a lot of counseling services, correct?
So if you want the list,
Go ahead.
I quit counting, honestly. So how this happened was I had to drop out of school because I had children early, so I got a GED. That was not good enough for me. I felt like it wasn't good enough, so I went back and I got a high school diploma as well. So I have both of those. I have 2 associate degrees. I have a bachelor's degree. I also have a master's degree. I am a certified hypnotherapist, auricular acupuncturist. I used to be a massage therapist. I am a certified Reiki master, certified Amadeus healer, internationally advanced certified drug and alcohol counselor, psychic medium, and it just goes on.
So honored. Thank you so much, April.
Too many pieces of paper.
Too many pieces of paper, but they all help, right? Then also, I'll bring something up, April, later on, or it's something we were discussing in our last Friday meditation, is the fact that I noticed that, let me introduce the rest of the panel and I'll bring this point up because of your certifications. We also have Ken, who is part of our core group of meditators, and Rob has started joining us on a regular basis recently in the past few weeks. And Rob is a book author and has done, has followed Eckhart Tolle's teachings, and Dr. Deepak, I see his posts talk about Dr. Deepak Chopra as well. So the point I was making, April, is what I feel is for somebody to make like jumps on the quantum jumps on the spiritual path. I've noticed like Sadhguru, like if you see Dr. Joe Dispenza, if you see Eckhart may not be, he says he never passed IQ tests, but he's extremely intelligent. Like the things he says, he'll just say it very calmly, right? Like very smoothly, they'll slide out of his mouth, right? But then you go, boom, oh my God, what did he just say? Right? It's like mind-blowing, like fire in the brain kind of very, very intelligent. So I feel like it's easier when you're intelligent, like and Rob can talk about this as well, because yeah, we can develop presence power, but after that, an analysis is required. An analysis and a watchfulness, a vigilance of our own behavior, of our own thoughts and feelings, right? And that requires intelligence. To say, oh, I'm feeling this irritation in the pit of my stomach, and that irritation is caused because, for me, like I take an example, in 2019, I suddenly started driving to work 5 days a week. And in the evening, I would come back like with a little bit of irritation, and I would go, what is this irritate? I had a fine day. I started my morning fine. The whole day was fine. What is this irritation? And I realized I had been working 3 days a week from home, and then 2 days I would go to work, and it wasn't that big a commute. But now I was going all 5 days and facing what we call here rush hour traffic, right? So you want to speak to that, April? Thank you.
So for me, Uh-oh. Hold on 1 second. Let me, 1 second. Sorry. That was my family. We have a big family thing going on, like somewhat of a crisis. So we have this group chat, and in the group chat, we do family calls, and my family is calling right now. So what happened for me was because of being a single mom or a young mom and being very poor, I was trying to find the way out. And I happened to be watching Oprah one day, and Oprah said, education is the light at the end of the tunnel. And I was like, that's it. That's how I get out of this poverty. That's how I create a new life for me and my girls. That's how I do it. So that on top of my dad, when I was younger, my dad would take me to college with him. He would take me and I would sit for an hour in his 2 hours in his class with the professor. So I already kind of had that influence of education and, and then I seen this, Oprah said that one day, and for me, it was the way out of the prison I was in. So that's when I started, like, I have to get a GED. Okay, I have to get this and I have to go to college and I have to. So that's one part of it. The other part of it was me trying to, I wanted to save my girls from living the same life I lived. That was my whole goal. So in order to do that, I had to heal myself, which is what led me to all the healing modalities. Every healing modality, I was trying to find the answer. And that's just what happened with me, and is why and I ended up with so many degrees and certificates. Then one day, in the midst of living my life, I think it was not long after my brother committed suicide. I had all my certificates like up on my bedroom wall, just in my bedroom. They were just up in my bedroom wall. They were in frames, and I was laying there and I'm looking at all these pieces of paper, and I'm like, these mean nothing. They literally mean nothing if I cannot have happiness inside. They're just expensive pieces of paper. And then that's when I really made the shift of, I have to figure out how to be happy, not just how to achieve. So that is the process for me. And that is, you can learn all kinds of things, but if you don't figure out how to internalize them, how to digest them, how to apply them, then they're useless. Now, as far as having intelligence, it does require, you learn a skill or you learn about something, and then there is an integration process. And so to me, there's a difference between intelligence and emotional intelligence. 2 + 2 is 4. That's intelligence, right? We can test your IQ. Emotional intelligence is a whole different ballgame. There's a lot of people who are super intelligent, but they don't have any emotional intelligence. And to me, the emotional intelligence is much more valuable. Emotional intelligence and spiritual intelligence, to me, are very intertwined, because spirituality, Christ consciousness, teaches you to do what? To love others, to love yourself. You have to be able to grow emotionally in order to do that. So for me, it's more about emotional intelligence versus intelligence. It's more about learning how to deal with those emotions and how to not react on them. That's a lot of presence power. We're not reacting, right? We're holding our own space, our own energy. So that's just how I see it. I see it more as growing your emotional intelligence muscle intertwining that with your spiritual knowledge, and then it becomes a way, a practice.
So I have another beautiful. Thank you so much, April. I have another question. This question was actually asked by MJ. I don't know if you remember last time when we were coaching, Kelly and I were coaching Patricia, and Kelly was saying, oh, you need to speak up, right, on some topic. And I was saying, no, you don't need to speak up. You can just use your, like surrender to it and change your energy, and that'll change the situation on the outside. So MJ asks, is speaking up important or defending our ego? So if you want to answer that, let me put MJ's question here.
So in that context, and I thought this as well too, and Kelly, the female Kelly, brought this up. When she was speaking, she brought this part up. When you are in your presence power, when you are connected to source and you are coming from that space, you should be able to determine whether it's an appropriate time to speak up or whether it's futile and we should just walk away. So I think this could be two sides of the same coin. You know, if it's a long-term situation or perhaps an abusive situation or a boundary situation and you need to learn to speak up, then yes, you can speak up. There are many times in my life where I choose not to speak up only because I am able to go into presence power and I'm able to connect with source and I'm able to sense whether it's even worth doing this. Because again, I always take in consideration the person's level of consciousness. A lot of times speaking up, it's not my ego, it's I know that this person's not going to be able to accept what I say. And I'm okay with not defending myself because I don't feel less than if I don't. Now, there's times where I do speak up. So is it, it's how you do it as far as whether you're in ego or not. Ego always wants to be bigger, better, stronger, richer, faster, on top, win the game, right? That's ego. That's how you know it's an ego. So if you're speaking up because you have that sensation inside and I have to show this person, well, then you're an ego. So it's more about getting in that presence power, connecting back with source, realizing what consciousness level that person is in. And it's not a judgment thing. I'm not judging the person. I'm sensing, where is this person at? And is this going to benefit me or them? And then the most important thing that I always do, and I'll say this always, I don't care if you are going to bed with your spouse, your partner, your husband, your cat or dog is next to you. You always go to bed with you at the end of the night. What do you want in your energy field when you go to bed? Do you want the fact that you chewed that lady out at the store in you as you go to bed? So it may seem like an act of selfishness, but it's really not. You have to love yourself enough to stay in your presence power when interacting with others, because at night you go to bed with you. And do you want that in your energy field, right? Now, sometimes it requires you to defend yourself or stand up. But even with that, you can still do it in a manner that you're not hurting people, right?
Beautiful. You're incredibly amazing. Thank you so much. So grateful for your input. So I'll give one example and then I'll go to Ken. in the speaking up, what you brought out is very, very accurate, because I remember in 1995, 96 timeframe, I was not this spiritually aware or at this degree of awareness. And at work, so what came to my mind when Kelly was saying this to Patricia was that scenario, which I'm going to describe now, is I had been working like long hours, and I was doing something at work that was kind of like something was like I was a system administrator, the whole email system was down, and I was working to bring it back up. And the person that works the help desk came in and she asked me something. And this is where it'll tie back into the past 2-3 weeks of work. Our shadow will come up, right? I said something to her. I don't know what I said to her. She asked me, can she help by calling people back or something? And I told her something that I'm taking care of it, kind of. But the sound of what I said, the scathing voice that I used, in the evening, my manager called me into his office and told me about it. He said, you need to apologize to her. And you need to let her know, like, what kind of you need to apologize to her. So next day, I was like so mortified. And then I realized when I examined it, I realized the scathing voice was the voice of the shadow came in, the voice of my mother came in. The sound of the way my mother spoke to me all these years came out, because I'm tired, I've been working long hours, and now there's already pressure to bring the system up. And then here's somebody coming and trying to derail me from what I need to do this little thing. And here's somebody. So what can happen if we don't have a vigilance, like April was saying, if we don't have enough, the clarification that Kelly should have made is, if we don't have enough presence power, then our shadow can come in and we can end up saying the wrong thing that we will regret. Like I bought the lady a whole, like a $60 bouquet, this thing of flowers with a vase, like complete arrangement, gave it to her. I said, sorry, please forgive me. But I'm sure, like Maya Angelou says, people will always remember how you make them feel. Right? She's always going to remember that I hurt her. I knew from the look in her face that never in her life was she ever going to forgive me. Right? So when we say speak up, you have to be in a very high degree of presence, because what you say, isn't that right, April? What you say can come out in such a wrong way that you'll end up destroying the relationship more than making it.
And that's those patterns, you know, like in your book, Poonam, that's those patterns that we have that surface in our interaction with others, or if we're stressed and then we're triggered, then this pattern or shadow, pops up.
Beautiful. Thank you. Ken, you want to say anything about both questions, the intelligence, and then about what NJ asked, and I'll go check the chat.
Okay, thank you. Yes, about, I'm going to say at the beginning of when I started seeing things, when I started understanding. I grew up with an alcoholic dad, a lot of fear, a lot of anger, and I didn't want to be home, even as a child. And I can remember asking my brothers and other people and saying, my house is cold and angry. And then as time went on, my safe place, when I didn't want to be with my family of origin, I would run into the woods. And so the woods became a safe place for me at a very young age. And it's just something that I had a passion for and loved. And I knew as a child that even as I grew up, I always knew I would be affiliated somehow with the forest. But I didn't know then that there was something that I was feeling for that reason. So I went to school for arboriculture. I had a tree and landscape business for 40 years. And while I was running my business, I was the type of person that was isolated. I didn't have many friends and I worked a lot. But as I was working, I knew, because I created, and I called a lot of my gardens healing gardens. I worked with, and I was always really very drawn to Japanese gardens, Zen gardens. And it was just did something. And then when I was attracted to that, and then I knew there's something more. There's something about this. And then in other ways, my world was going deeper and deeper into a black hole. One was alcoholism, and one was just being unhappy. And so I realized that I had to, my life had to go in that direction. And then later on in life, in my late 40s, even earlier, there would be certain parts of me that were, I want to say, waking up. There'd be certain things I could do that would feel good. But then there were other things I did, I didn't feel good. So that led me to realizing spiritual awakening. And when I did, my whole life changed. It was almost as if that was the missing piece for me. I knew that there's something else going on that was very much needed. And it brought me joy. It brought me happiness. It felt good. It's almost like an inner magnet. When I'd be drawn to certain things, I would feel better. And when I would go toward certain things that I knew weren't right, I wouldn't feel good. And then I wanted more of this as I got older. And even I knew my business, and I knew I needed to do something else besides my business, because the business itself wasn't doing it. So this other energy that I acquired spiritually, and it was about energy, and I wanted what other people had that I was drawn to, that I was surrounded by at different times. So, and now this is my 10th year that I did retire. And now what I love to do is spiritual work. And I'm drawn to spiritual people. So this is something where, and then being present is just incredible. And in a big, big way, I stopped thinking. By thinking, I be in my humanness and pretty much be in the past or the future. And it would almost be like, I would be like spinning, meaning it was like I was attracting different energies. And usually those energies were not healthy. And I wanted, again, part of what I needed is to be around people. And I actually would pray, meditate. And I knew there was something else. And so I'd be drawn to different things. So I've learned, watch out for what you ask for, because you just might get it. And in many ways, sometimes we may get things that we need to work through that may be uncomfortable, and realize, okay, where's this coming from? Is this coming from my heart? Is this coming from my thinking? So it's an amazing journey of realization and deep understanding, deeper knowledge. And just what April was saying about, and I love what she was saying about, she had all her awards and different things in their paper. And what it is, eventually this energy, different things will just come through. I call it downloading of information. So if I'm on the spiritual path and there's certain times of the day, and especially through meditation, or you just get into a quiet, peaceful place, and information comes in. You have an understanding that helps you to understand different things that would just kind of come through. They come through people, dreams, movies. For me, it's through the forest. I walk, it's like lucid dreaming. I'll go into the forest or be by the ocean. So it's almost like my nature when it mirrors nature. And it doesn't matter where you're feeling that. That to me is the presence power, presence energy. And I agree very much. When something needs to be said, it almost comes across as a feeling. There are no accidents. You may bump into the right situation at the right time. And you realize that, how did this happen? Don't ask. It just, and these are the synchronicities. There are different things that do happen. And when you start to understand that, they get manifested and they'll just happen much, much faster. And a lot of that is being in your own heart and believing and trusting, even though you don't understand, trust. And it's magical. So I'll leave that with that question. And Poonam, could you say again about the second question?
The second question is posted on
Oh,
the
it is?
top. MJ's question is speaking up, and is speaking up important or defending our ego? I'll post it again.
Okay, I can see it. Thank you. No, speaking up, if you're in your ego, to me is not healthy at all. And that there will usually the wrong message, or I'll say something that I'm going to regret. And it's something where, and it's actually something that I'm learning now in my life and realizing that if I'm holding on to a grievance or something that doesn't feel right, it's almost like I'm still attached to something that I haven't cleared up. And it's usually something from my past. And it's usually something that I'm still upset over. Whatever it is, that to me is a subtle message that I still have some work to do around something. So I'm learning to, because I used to be a reactor. And to me, I did more damage with my words than I did in other ways. And I'm learning to hold back. So that there, and I'll ask, or I'll talk to other people. I'll pray, I'll meditate. And if it feels right, and then I'm ready to speak. And I'm learning that is so helpful. And there are a lot of people that I trust, and I'll ask certain questions to other people, and that I do trust, just to get their opinion. And it's saving my behind. It's a much subtler way. So thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you, Ken. And what I wanted to bring up is MJ's question of saying defending our ego. Byron Katie always says defense is always an act of war. So you start warring, right? The moment we have defense in us, then we've started a war. The other person would come back. And I feel that's when we'd be attached to an opinion, which is a thought formation. They will be attached to their thought formation, and it just like escalates, right? So it
Like
never
energy.
is.
Yeah, it's like energy with like energy, whether it's negative or whether it's positive.
Perfect.
Yes, absolutely.
Beautiful. Thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
Rob, did you want to talk about both topics? One is MJ's question and the other one that it requires a certain amount of intelligence, or I've found all of these thought leaders to be highly intelligent, like Dr. Joe Dispenza and Eckhart. Go ahead. Thank you.
Sure, thanks for having me. I know Eckhart Tolle has talked about intelligence not quite being as important as that presence power, that inner alignment. And so being able to be open to that inner self of vulnerability that some put walls up around is important. And it's the alignment. It's the Bhagavad Gita talks about the Dharma and the Atman. And I'm not one of these super intelligent people, so I might mess some of this up, but I've internalized that for me to be my right action being taken from a place of alignment with the one consciousness. And that's always done on a foundation of peace. So if it's a matter of speaking up or defending the ego, verbiage can muddy the water. Just the sound of speaking up sounds like we're in a defense mode and we're not in a peaceful mode. And that may not be what the questioner is, implying. So I would say, whatever our action or no action is, it should come from this place of inner alignment, this peaceful place inside. And if I'm not able to get to that peaceful place, then it's not a time for me to speak up. It's probably a time for me to walk away. And if I can maintain that inner peace, then that is the right action. Whatever comes from that peaceful place is the right verbiage or right action or no action at all.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Rob.
You're welcome.
Exemplary in the fact that if we maintain our presence power, then right action will arise just right out of the presence. That's what April said and Ken said, and now even you are stating. So grateful. Let me read what Hugh said. Hugh said, Grandma said, a wise man never goes to sleep having enemies. So I think that this is to April's, don't go to sleep. If you chewed out the cashier, then, and do you want to go to sleep with that kind of energy kind of thing? So one of the things that the other thing I want to iterate, and I'm glad Patricia came online, because she actually gave this example on Friday during group meditation, and I want her to speak to it. But what I've observed since year 2016, and this is now that I've gotten deeper into Dr. Joe's teachings, he exactly says the same thing. He says, matter does not change matter. Energy changes matter. So the more we change our energy, the more we affect the physical world. So I worked for Fortune 50 and Fortune 100 companies. Any challenging, and there are a lot of challenging work situations that happen. No matter how challenging, and this can be the project that I'm working on is like making world news kind of project, right? It's on that platform of making like national news. But with that level of stress, I can change my energy and the whole world around me changes. So that's why, that was another reason why I said we don't ever have to speak up. As we change our energy, the more we become at peace. The other external, another example that I had given, and I talked about it during group meditation, and that's why I'm bringing up even during the Facebook Live, since most of the people that are watching on Facebook Live don't actually come to the group meditation. These are the incredible discussions we have during group meditation as well. I would really, really want to welcome everyone to join the group meditations as well, since all of us are also there discussing almost the similar topics. So I had a situation where one of my coworkers was, I don't know, she had issues with everybody. Like she had what I would call, in Eckhart's terms, just as an observation, that it's a heavy pain body. And she would be frustrated with everyone. She was frustrated with me. She stopped talking to me. And so what I would do is just change my energy. Like if she was around and she was making like those frustrating noises or being frustrated around me, I would just put on like some meditation music or an Eckhart talk or something in the evening. Just in that, in the change shift of that energy field of my surrender, instead of going to work, something happened with our management. We didn't have to, this is how amazing what Dr. Joe says, right? How when we change internally, when the external world starts to change, we realize we are co-creating the external world, how we can shift the external world. So what happened is, the more I would surrender and be okay with everything that's going on, the turbulence that was going on, I would surrender and surrender. I would put on some music. I would go for a walk in the evening whenever her energy became that way. And so I surrendered, and like a blessing, like a beautiful grace, like I did not ask the universe this. It did not, this is like divine grace. My manager started reporting to some other manager who was out of state. So they changed our work situation to be 3 days at home and 2 days at work. So already I didn't have to see her 5 days a week, right? A few months passed, and then it became Christmas. So I took some vacation during, normally during holidays, you take extended 2 or 3 weeks, right? I took some vacation. She took some vacation. I kept surrendering, right? Give it a couple of more months, she left the company. A few months later, my manager left the company. It's like everybody, as we shift, that is how this is the co-creation that Dr. Joe Dispenza is talking about, that if we change our energy, and all we need to do is change our energy, even with the situation that you are having at home, April, all we need to do is change our energy, and the external situation will change. If the external situation is getting challenging, then that means our energy is challenging. We have not gotten to that depth of presence. And all we need to do, and all the other players that are involved need to do, is if they get into their depths of presence, the situation will dissolve automatically. It does not have to escalate. That's one thing I have. And if you'll see, it has reflected in the group as well. Like the same energy. In 2019 is when we went from maybe a few thousand people to 20 or 30,000 people. Like we Zoomed, like our membership on the group platform, like Zoom. So it's like the energy reflected over and over again. It showed up in different ways that I was maintaining the right kind of, the consciousness was expanding, that everything was coming like in an abundance. To that, Patricia, I want you to talk about what happened with your coworker, and you told me that all you did was you said, "I'm sorry," on Friday you were talking about your coworker, you were rescheduling something and how you just changed their energy. So if you want to talk about that, thank you. So that will be another, you were an example of truth. I wanted to just let you give that example because it's not just me, right? Thank you so much. So grateful for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Poonam. Yes, I was listening. It's fascinating that we can come up with those examples so quickly because it's such a universal topic. We all have the experiences with that. And yes, so just long story short, right? This is a service manager who has, I see his ego is very, very high. He always needs to be right. He needs to do certain things. And in many things, in the position that he is, this is very called for. I mean, he does the action, he does certain things. But it was a situation that I tried to, it was the end of the day, almost everybody left. And I didn't want to cross, his territory. It was something about scheduling treatment, bed bug treatment. I work for a pest control company for the very next day. And he was at the doctor's. I did not know that. My bad. I didn't check that. I called. He said, Patricia, why are you calling me? I'm at the doctor's. But then he called me back. I explained quickly. He said, so now it's on my lap. Now I have to deal with this. But he did, because that's who he is. I knew I could count on him. And he did schedule everything beautiful, called the customer. So when I came the next day, I saw that and I thanked him. Then he called me to his office, like he was angry. It's like, what made you even think that you can give it to me? Didn't you know I'm at the office? Blah, blah, blah. And he was so infuriated that I just let it, I sat there. And I was, I felt some energy, but I was very calm. I was really holding, very aware of what was going on. I let him go through the motion. And it almost like he was expecting a fight or defending or anything. And I just said to him, I'm very deeply sorry. And he's like, oh, no, that's okay. You can always call me. I'll help you. And then he was like, all of a sudden, trying to show me how I could have dealt with him. And, I was like, oh, my God, it was incredible that I could almost believe it. After this, like, oh, that worked very well. And I just listened to what Poonam suggested. But it was very sincere. It wasn't just, oh, I'm sorry, right? With this tone of voice, it was just like, I understood. It's like, oh, shoot. He is always here, like 100%. And this time he left a little earlier. He went to the doctor, and here I'm dumping on him a big thing that he has to do when he goes home afterwards, because we all live at 5. So it was really like 4:30 something that this thing came in. So yeah, that was just example, but I even had another example from this week, and my ego acted. But in my head, I had the entire explanation why, oh, I didn't even know. That's not what I meant, when I did something. And I just realized the other person completely in their head read it differently. And they had to like throw the emotions. And again, I just stood there and listened. And instead of defending my position, oh no, it's not what I meant, I never meant to blah, blah, blah. I just said, thank you so much for being so vulnerable and explaining how you felt. And it wasn't my intention, but I am deeply sorry that, that situation happened. Oh my God. And again, the lady was like, oh, that's okay, Patricia. We good. I just need to get it on my chest because thing. But then I went back, right? And I really look at this and I said, shoot, there was my ego that caused that situation. in the beginning, because if I felt like I'm fine, always it was about parking spaces, because we came in the same time. I was rushing, so I quickly should. She was backing up. She thought that I took the spot. It was just like silly, but I knew that she was backing up next to me anyway, because she never takes the spot that is by the door. She doesn't like it. But in her head, I just like took the spot. So it was a silly too. But in my head, it's like, oh, I came here first, right? And she is just taking her sweet time to back up. I have to go in because I'm running a little late. So it was just silly. But yes, and those situation happens. There's another situation that happened yesterday. My colleague, she just, after getting off the phone, she's normally very fun, very lively, but she didn't feel good yesterday. So she started cursing. And we have, obviously, in the office, you're not supposed to curse. It's not professional. But, she's from Bronx, this Vivian, and she was F this, F that, this F customer. It's like, I'm done with that. Okay. Now, I had a choice as a manager to pull her aside. It's like, this is unacceptable. I'm going to write you, write it. You're the, what do you call it? Write up. And, take it almost like a disciplinary action, because it wasn't the first time. But instead, I just sat, I observed, I breathed, and I was trying to feel, compassion and love, and understanding that she wasn't feel good. The things were coming. It was a tough day. And that was a customer that she wasn't initially dealing with. So she kind of stepped in to help. And then it backfired because there's some complications came up. And instead, I just got up from my desk and I said, Jean, I'll help you with that one. Just give it to me. And she was, oh, no. And it's like the minute, the energy, that the presence power of me comes out, it's almost like the big balloon of the ego, of anger, of frustration. They kind of realize that it's not a big deal, or it's really not, because the ego didn't get fed, so it just depleted completely its ugly face. And then I was able to solve it, no problem. And yes, so those situations coming up, but I've been doing a lot of Dr. Joe Dispenza meditations this morning, even in the mornings, like an hour. And I noticed that even though those situations come up, but I have now the tool or ability to act differently. Almost like that the universe is giving me situation now to practice in real life the meditations or the presence power that I gain during the meditations. And I lost it for a second today a little bit. It's like the ego started to come out, but very quickly this time, instead of me going into the victim mode and okay, everybody's dumping now on me because I'm taking their stuff because I can handle it. So now everybody's just pouring. It's like, wait, it's backfire now. So I just, for a moment, just stood up. It's like, no, wait a second. And then I got some pushbacks, and then I went back to my office and like, So I tried go back to my old self, and it didn't work. So I'm very grateful, and I always now thank everybody for their effort, like Poonam suggested, and it makes huge difference because everybody seems to be very ego, like defensive about everything, the smallest thing, but it's my energy that makes a difference. If I push and try to prove them wrong, even if they were in the moment acting of ego and being wrong, but by just proving it wrong to them, it's not gonna help. It's just gonna add to the diversity. So and that's why I don't speak up right away, or even, it's not even speaking up. It's just coming from that service, from like, how can I help this human being out of compassion? And then all of a sudden, speaking up is not even necessary because the situation solves itself. So stuff like this. But I missed the first question. So as far as speaking up, what is concerned is defending in the ego. I actually think at this point and feel that it is. It's like almost every time that if there is a need to speak up, there is an ego involved. Because otherwise, in the presence power, what is there to defend or speak out? What difference does it make? It's almost like the story that Eckhart said in one of his talks about the monk that was accused of being a father of a child for like a 18-year-old daughter of a neighbor, and then the parents were upset, brought the baby, and he's like, is that so? He took the baby, he raised it for a year, then it turned out just the presence power, right? The situation that the boy that she knew from a different place, different street, was the father, and then the parents came, give us the baby, we so sorry, you're not the father. And he's like, is that so? But then he raised this beautiful child for a year, right? And in that presence power. So in a sense, what would have done if he was, that's not me, you got to prove it, blah, 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 I don't want the baby. He was in the right, he wasn't the father. But like almost sometimes like the right or wrong, it's just a way of ego thinking. There is no right and wrong. Everything is part of the experience and it's necessary, and we need to be grateful and look at it, what lesson it brings us. So for me personally, every time there is a negative situation that my body reacts and I don't feel good, or like irritation or something, there you go. Thank you. It's an ego. It's coming up something else, some bubble from the past, some pain body is coming up, and I don't see it. I think I'm fine, but because the situation brings it, I have to look at it. It's like, whoa, that was my blind spot. Something is bringing it to my attention. And now, thanks to Joe Dispenza, I can change the way because I'm a different person now, I'm a different body. So I actually can choose to act differently. Even if the choice is not acting, not reacting at that moment, it's still non-action, just acceptance and being grateful for the message. By the way, what was the first question about intelligence?
I was saying April was counting her certificates and everything. So I just remember April has a master's. So I don't remember exactly what master's she has, but I remember that she has a master's. So that kicked off the discussion we were having during group meditation, that Eckhart is so intelligent, right? That Dr. Joe Dispenza, because Eckhart said during the video that we were watching, he said, he was explaining the ego to all of us. And he was saying, if the person is in the Lamborghini, then they may have an ego saying, I'm in a Lamborghini, but the person who's in the bicycle, if they're parked right next to the Lamborghini and looks at the guy in the Lamborghini and says, oh, that guy has a ego, right?
Yeah.
Because he's in a Lamborghini.
And also humble because I ride a bike, right?
Yeah. Then Eckhart says just that saying that, oh, that guy has a ego is also the spiritual ego. The way he said it so quickly and like very smoothly it slid out of his mouth that you saying that that guy being in the Lamborghini, that may be true that the guy in the Lamborghini is having an ego, but you saying that, being on a bicycle and you saying that, even that is the ego. I mean, I was like, oh my God, like the way he said it, he's like extremely, the things that he can pinpoint, and especially about the ego, the observations Eckhart can make, the precision, like he almost has like a scalpel, right? It's not even a chef's knife. It's like he takes a scalpel and he can go through the ego, the human ego. That's why I love him so much.
Sometimes that's source, because like Sadhguru, like he'll tell you, I don't have an education. Why do I need an education? I can absorb the energy from you. So some of that is source as well. Being connected with source is infinite, like the Akashic records, right? It's infinite information too.
But you know, like I feel so. Even if you're connected to source, April, I feel then that person needs an interpretation of what source is saying. Like say it in the proper words, put the frame of the sentences correctly so that it's communicated well out, right? Like how Dr. Joe says his words, right? Like he'd say, what sinks in the brain links in the brain. So it like really sinks in the brain. Or he'd say, nerve cells that fire together, wire together. Or he'd say, then that kind of like hits you, right? That there's a neuroplasticity in us. Like Patricia isn't it incredible that Patricia within a year has come to this point that she's understood within a year? This is incredibly amazing, Patricia, growth. What do you think,
What
April?
I want to say to her, like what was the shift? So remember, like all this time you're kind of looking for the answer. What's the answer? How do I get there? What was the shift? What was that shift? That shift was you learn to stop making it about you and to stand back, to just observe, just watch, just feel and sense. But you tell me, what was the shift?
She started doing Dr. Joe Dispenza's meditation that allowed her to do that, to sit back. She started like the recommendation I had since last year was do 2 hours of meditation, because Dr. Joe does it, Dr. Deepak Chopra, everyone that is not Eckhart Tolle does 2 hours of meditation first thing in the morning. So I told Patricia, why don't you shift to 2 hours of meditation? And she's done 2.5, sometimes 2 hours, 40 minutes, right?
I was fighting it first because I thought that with all the beautiful words and insight and knowledge that I got from each one of you during the workshops, during our discussions, and I was good because I could understand, but it's very different to have an experience of it. Like my ego almost was being fed because like, yeah, that's true. That's how I am. That's how I feel. That they're right. That's so right. And then I would go, into my workplace and hitting my head in the same place over and over. It's like, what am I doing wrong? I know it. I would even practice before getting off the car, April's, putting myself in a dome, but it was all, I felt it was just all mental. It was just images. I could create images, with stories, but it's something energetically that needed to change. And I also feel that every single discussion, every single aha moment that I got during the group meditations, even with when April talked to me private, that was so incredible. It was adding one more, like a big thing, and all of a sudden, one tiny thing was the what is it? The needle shifter. So it was an accumulation also.
Needle mover.
model of medical medium, and really practice. It took time in here in the physical place, and I got some coherence healings done, and I felt sometimes that I'm going back actually. Like, that's not working. I feel worse. So my ego was trying to, undermine it and jeopardize everything I've done so far, because I think it was starting to feel that it's almost the end of it. I mean, at least some of the, so, yeah, but as far as the intelligence, I agree that I actually not sure if we are born in certain capacities, like the organ, which is our brain, has a certain capacity. For some people, like the kids are almost brilliant from the time they're in kindergarten, and those geniuses, like Mozart or Einstein. It's like it's not amount necessarily of facts. They just, the way they are able to recognize and learn the facts, it's almost up to the such high level, versus some kids are slower. They just don't have that ability. I mean, even my colleagues at this point, I take for granted how fast I am in learning and stuff. I'm not on a genius level, but even with like math, percentages, pricing and stuff, I can in my head. And my colleagues is like, Patricia, can you just take this call, because I'm not that good with math. I can't, what you're saying to me. And when I was telling her, advising her on how to price it, for me, it was the simplest thing. It's like, how come somebody else can't, process this? So it's almost just like, so intelligence is certain facts, right? Or maybe ability to process information. But now we need that source to connection to it, to use it in the right way. And that's wisdom, I think, right? Or that, like April was talking about, maybe emotional intelligence, that just because I can think something, I can do something, doesn't mean I should. And that's where the other parts come in, the wisdom, the spirituality. Because look at what Germans were so, during especially World War II, they did such experiments on human body. The medicine, the engineering went so far, advanced, because, but look what they did with it. They caused so much suffering and pain that, yeah, nobody can deny how intelligent their scientists were. But why would we want to?
No, what I'm saying is what I said was that to get to that spiritual depth, that person was intelligent. Like whether you take Sadhguru or whether you, like it requires intelligence. You cannot just be not intelligent and have that level of spiritual depth. Like
Yeah,
if you, even if you take, let's say, yeah.
No,
like,
I agree. I think Marianne Williamson said also, was talking about it, that we still have to do our work. It's okay to learn. It's okay to acquire intelligence and read books. And, it's something that our brain needs to process, but then you kind of surrender. And she said, ask divine spirit to organize my thoughts. So when I speak, I have all this knowledge, but when I speak and use it, let it be the source speaking through me. And not just using simple facts that are just empty.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Patricia. Thank you for being the example of truth. I wanted to read what Summer said. Summer said, yes, or every morning decide on your energy vibes by listening to a great morning meditation or mantras. So that's what Summer is doing. And then MJ said, and maintain our energy to the best we can. Let me check again. There are more comments. Lakshmi said, Let me see. JK says there is a vast distinction between intellect and intelligence. Intellect is merely thought functioning independently of emotion. When intellect, irrespective of emotion, is trained in any particular direction, one may have great intellect, but one does not have intelligence, because in intelligence there is the inherent capacity to feel as well as to reason. In intelligence, both capacities are equally present intensely and harmoniously. And then she says, J. Krishnamurti, that's Jiddu Krishnamurti, also says that until you approach all of life with your intelligence, instead of merely with your intellect, no system in the world would save man from the ceaseless toil for bread. Incredible. This has been incredibly amazing. I think we should stop here since it's getting late for Patricia. I want her to go to bed. I don't want to keep her up late at night since she has to wake up at 4 in the morning, and Ken has to wake up at 5 in the morning for his meditation. So
What about you, Poonam? What time do you wake up?
at 5 in the morning, so that I can do my lemon water and celery juice, and then start my meditation so that
Well,
I get,
since I commute, yes, you get that because you work from home. Yes, since I commute, I need to do at 4. Yes, to do the same thing.
exactly, you have to add time for your commute.
Yes.
Incredibly amazing. Thank you so much for having this wonderful conversation, so profoundly humble. And for Lakshmi and MJ and Christina and Summer and Sri Lakshmi and Kishori, everyone that's online, much love, many blessings.
Thank you, Poonam,
Really
for
grateful. Thank
organizing.
you. Bye, Rob. Bye, Sri Lakshmi. Bye, Ken.
Thank you.
Bye, Patricia.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.